Welcome to Hacking Postgres, a podcast about extensions, extension creators, and other interesting, innovative things in the world of Postgres. I'm Ry Walker, founder of Tembo, a managed Postgres company, and today I am here with Gülçin Yıldırım Jelínek.
Yes,
that's my attempt.
Yeah, you made it.
Yeah, we were practicing. Anyway, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Yeah, well, great. Well, so I'd love to start by giving a quick background. Like, what were you doing before Postgres? Where'd you grow up in the world? And we have a great cast of international characters on this podcast. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I grew up in Turkey and I studied in Istanbul and I worked there. I started working with different databases before I come to finally to Postgres. I worked with Oracle, DB2. I was doing like this kind of SQL developer or like business analyst, BI, that kind of reporting. It was the beginning of my career, and then in 2012. I started with Postgres at a startup company in Turkey. And that was it, basically. From that moment on, I was like, okay, like I really loved it and I still do. And yes, and after that, I just moved out of Turkey, lived in Estonia for a few years for doing my master's degree. Now I live in Prague and I work for EDB. Before I was working with for a second quadrant. And that's where I actually learned, I think, a lot about Postgres for over all the years. Yeah.
Awesome.
This is
great.
how it is. Yeah.
Yep. So what were you when you first started using Postgres? Do you remember the first touch or not really?
I don't know exactly what I did, but I remember the year. So it was really easy. Before the Postgres 10, we had these minor versions added to it. So it was like 9.2 because it was 2012. But we had the customers. It was not like that year 9.2 was released, but we had customers, they were using, I think, 8.4, 8.2. There was even 7.4 when I was managing it. So I used Postgres in different companies. Like one of them was like a betting company. There was an e-commerce company. So I seen different workloads and different scenarios of using Postgres. So I think it's really improved my ability to see different things. And I think that was like before 9 times that when I started. And now I'm happy that
Nice.
It's like once went so far. It's now Postgres 17 in baking, and I'm really happy to be part of it for this much of time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tell me about what you've worked on, whether it's in the core or in extensions. I'm kind of curious to know like what you've spent most of your time in the beginning and what you're doing now as well. Maybe the evolution of the work.
Right. For me, I'm not a developer. I don't consider myself a developer. I'm more like a database. I started as a database admin, and then the things and the philosophies changed. So I learned a little bit of Ansible and learned Kubernetes, and so my career went towards a bit more DevOps. It was called at some point site reliability engineering, automation development. So I write some Python and some YAML code mainly. And I like this GitHub actions and automations and tests and integration. So this is what I develop in the sense of development, but I didn't use C since university, so I'm not Postgres developer or extension developer yet. Maybe eventually. I saw the Hacking Postgres workshops. One of them is organized by my friend Tomasz. He is also one of the contributors and also my colleague. And I was thinking maybe I should join and maybe see the ways that I can contribute to Postgres, because before I didn't have this much of time that I can actually dedicate to an external project out of the work that I do within the companies. But now I feel like I can maybe do it. So eventually, who knows?
Yeah, that's great.
And other than what I did with Postgres itself, I was mainly the administrator of Postgres databases for the big chunk of my career. But after 2015, when I started the second quadrant, there was this like remote DBA position. It was again the same thing, DBA, but for many more companies. But then while I was working there and doing support shifts, and because the part of the job is be on the call, and there was this project starting, Trusted Postgres Architect. Now it's actually open source by EDB. With GPL license, so if anybody wants to try. But what it was doing essentially is to automate the process of like deploying Postgres clusters and make it repeatable, make it like, manage as a code, infrastructure as a code. And that actually improved my ability to look to Postgres management and administration through a bigger scale, so that we could do any scenario for any customers might need, any training might require. So we were keep adding stuff like, support for, VPC support for that. The logical replication support, introducing the backups to it. I don't know how to configure it in a way that people just can use it out of the box. So there was a period of after we developed this tool, which I still worked on in the EDB after all the years. We did our own database as a service project. It didn't really hit off the market, but yeah, it was a big experience for me that we could use this deployment tooling solution to make our own database as a service in second quadrant. So yeah, I was managing that project. So I became this like cloud managed database service, that kind of person there. Yeah, now what I do is mainly kind of, I think, a little bit of architectural role, that I have the input with the different teams, and I can oversee what they are working on. A little bit of advocacy as well. I have my podcast too. And yeah, so I just do, I think, more fun things now. In this part, I'm like less of stressed, more fun.
Yeah. So tell me about your podcast. What are you covering in the podcast?
It is really similar. It is really similar. The name is The Builders, a Postgres podcast. Okay. And yeah, and I actually listened to your podcast, the Hacking Postgres, and I was like really inspired. I was thinking, this is cool. Like, we really need to hear people who are developing Postgres, just to get to know them better and learn about what's happening. Because unless you are really going to, like Postgres conferences and reading all the email threads, you really don't know until things are released. But when you just talk to people randomly, you just learn a lot of insights in just like a short period of time. So I think it's really valuable format for reaching people. And thank you for doing this too.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, it's great for learning. That's the main reason I'm doing it. Is it's learning for me. It's learning for anyone who's listening. You can hear me ask stupid questions and like the, and hopefully it connects people as well. Because I think people seem a lot more approachable after hearing them on a podcast. You kind of feel like you know them to some degree. So yeah,
exactly.
I just wrote it down. I'm gonna listen to your podcast next.
Please.
Yeah. So I kind of came. I mean, I've been using Postgres for many years, but I came really hard into Postgres about a year ago, and I did read about like the second quadrant. Was acquired by EDB. Second quadrant had some sort of master sort of solution that was open source, but then got unopen sourced, I guess, to some degree. But is the second quadrant team still sort of together inside the company, or has it diffused, kind of fully into EDB?
We were acquired by EDB when I was actually had a brief period of leave at second quadrant. I had a baby, but we get to and most of the folks that I worked with are still in EDB. Of course, some people left, but I think we still have this like unity feeling that is, like these old colleagues always have, like, we share the experiences, because it was a long time. We worked for a long time, like, and it was a smaller company. So you bond. I mean, there are stories like, now I will tell a personal story. The founder of Second Quadrant, Simon Trix, he is really important for me in general, in my learning periods, and just like being part of community as well. And he walked me to the aisle when we married. So it's like, it was a big thing. I really feel like a family when we have a kids. They visited us, when somebody marries, we were going together. So we were a remote company always. So I worked remotely for 10 years, maybe more. But we never felt remote, because we were like nonstop traveling, going to customers together, going to conferences together, joining live events. So I really miss that.
Awesome. That's great. Glad to hear that camaraderie is still close. Yeah. I know EDB has a SaaS called Big Animal. Is that based on any second quadrant work, or was that a completely separate effort from EDB?
Right. The extension that you were referring previously with, multi-master extension, that is, at the time, it was called BDR. And now we are calling it Postgres Distributed, EDB Postgres Distributed. So the project effort is still going on, and it is part of Big Animal offering too. But of course, the underlying platforms, we just developed in EDB. And so people can use PGD through Big Animal, and I think other architectures too. I'm not so sure, but PGD is in Big Animal. And if people don't know what PGD is, maybe I can just say a few words. So it is a multi-master replication solution, and they call it like loosely coupled in a way that it is a mesh topology, and you can write to any server. And these changes are sent directly and row by row to all other servers in the same PGD group, they call it. And it is using asynchronous replication. So it means, the changes are applied on the nodes after the local commit. So, and also there are different synchronous replication options available too. But PGD is here for a long time, and it was it was feeding into the development in Postgres 2 for logical replication, because that's the underlying technology.
Mm-hmm. So is it it's an extension, but it's a private extension. Like, people don't get to see the source code for that, right? They just get to use it. Okay.
Yes.
And as Postgres is marching towards potentially having active in the core, is some of the code from that making its way, or is it? Is that? Are you guys helping to guide that? I know that it sounds like the current problem with Postgres 17, or even with 16, is that merge, or basically conflicts happen routinely in the way that it's been architected. But have you guys built a pretty good system to eliminate most or all of those conflicts? Or I'm kind of curious how good of a job it does, or how often humans have to intervene.
Right. So the history of PGD started long in line with the Postgres development. So it has been always the features that developed in PGD, and there was also PG logical extension. They were after logical decoding, I think from 9.4 was included in Postgres, that we, PG logical, pushed the features back to Postgres. So when Postgres bring the logical replication in core in Postgres 10, we already, they already use these features that PG logical brought. So I don't know how exactly conflict management in PGD at the moment now, because I didn't use it for a few years myself. But there are I can just look it up if you like. But so it is used for a long time. So it is tested by the big companies and big customers. So it could be trusted, and it is feeding Postgres development too. I don't know exactly. I think there was different mechanisms that you could actually arrange the conflict management by which one comes later, latest committed, and I don't know. There was multiple things that I think I forgot the algorithm that used maybe Raft. I don't know.
Yeah. So I get you're not working on that project, I should say, but I wonder if the hope or the desire could be that everything that it does makes its way into the open source, or I imagine EDB wants to maintain a little bit of a competitive advantage around its solution there. But obviously from a selfish standpoint, I want it to be available to everybody.
Right. Me too. I'm all for it. I worked in so many projects that none of them made open source up until recently. TPA made it to open source, and I was like, I was not working on Shadow. There was actually stuff that I was doing. So I'm also pro open for everything. But the companies and their philosophies are not exactly this. It can change over time, but I know that most of it is open, and we have a lot of contributors from EDB to Postgres, and maybe even the most. I'm not sure because second quadrant had a lot, and we went there, so EDB became. So I'm sure they're all working towards to make Postgres more open, and all these features they know they will be part of Postgres eventually.
Yeah. We use the CloudNativePG operator inside of our product as well. So we're kind of wrapping parts of your I say you being you, the royal you, one of your tools there. But have you done anything with CloudNativePG? Have you touched that or not really?
I know Gabriele is really active about it, and we didn't talk for so long. I didn't check the product. I know that I think there are a few competitors to it, but I know from the reviews that I read is one of the best. So I didn't use it by myself, but I know that it's there is a support to it. It will grow. Yeah.
We started building a brand new one using Rust, but we dropped it a few months in. Just said, cloud native. I think once we got to like back up and restore, we're like,
maybe not.
Let's just use these guys. Point in time restore.
Right.
I don't remember what the exact stimulus was, but we did a call with the team. I think they get on a call every 2 weeks or so. It's mostly all EDB people, but it's kind of fun. We're like popping into their internal. It seems like an internal, but it is an open source project,
Exactly.
Yeah, they were very welcoming, and we're excited to be using that. So that's cool.
Good.
So
I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah. So like right now, like you're basically, would you say you're sort of an architect, advisor type thing, or is there a project that you're kind of like hacking on as well?
Yeah, so I was still connected to TPA project, and up until to the point that it became open source, and I can probably help if needed. But my goals kind of like progress in the career changed to a little bit of more like architectural, overseeing the development teams, what they do to create the kind of facilitator role. I feel myself doing, like just learn the input from what they do and maybe offer, suggestions or how things can be made maybe in a way that works better for different customers, because I actually like relationships with customers too, in a way that I want to learn what they are struggling with, and if we have something to support. And now that with the PGVector, my interest turned a little bit towards this, the AI workloads. So we have some customers who are obviously interested in it. So I am the one kind of becoming this, PGVector vector database person. So.
Yeah, we have one of those at our company too. It's like once you start down that rabbit hole, it's a deep rabbit hole, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also exciting. It's the beginning of some new thing, and being in there is like gives you a lot of advantage. Like just to say.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that it's a revolution, perhaps as important as the dawn of the internet, which is saying a lot. But like, I remember when the internet happened, it just changed everything. Mobile computing did the same thing, but it's just so early in this AI stuff. I mean, it's I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in 20 or 30 years. Internet's been around for 30 years, let's say. And 30 years from now, what are these AIs going to be? Oh my gosh, it's crazy to think about it, because they're already pretty powerful. So, internet, when it first started, its first year, everyone was like, toy, it's a fad, it's going to go away. And we're not hearing that, I don't think, about this generation of AI. There's not many naysayers, so that tells me it's got a lot of power, staying power. There are some people that basically think it's too dangerous, and it's going to take over the world, but no one had that fear. So what are you? I'm curious. Like, are there milestones in any in Postgres, or projects that you're it could be any extension or whatever. Are there any like big milestones you're looking forward to in Postgres progress?
Yeah, like I was just thinking before, like about extensions, because I was thinking, and for me the main, like what I follow is recently SPGVector, and they recently did the new release 0.6, and it is exciting actually. I can talk about it because they brought lots of stuff, like they added parallel index builds for the HNSW index. And it's also like they did the performance improvements for it, reduced memory usage, reduced wall generation. So it is really exciting because, they have this two type of indexes that if you start using PGVector, you will have the PGVector vector data type, so that you can store, for the people who don't know, maybe you can store, query, index vector data. But then there's like two types that they support currently, IVF flat and this HNSW. And seeing the difference between, like having parallel index build is huge. So it will improve already just as it is the performance. And I can see that they are in a really good trend. So I think PGVector will hear more of it. As you say, it is a revolutionary thing, part of it for Postgres. And it made Postgres AI ready. So I'm really excited. I really look forward to, be involved a little bit more. I wrote a blog post, but I should write exactly now the second one, because I promised that I will write the second one about indexes. But I'll have to do that.
Well, are you on Twitter? I don't know. I've seen your posts on Twitter. Are you? Okay, so we'll have to connect.
But my name will be so hard to find.
Yeah. Well, once we find it, you can like my stuff and retweet, and we'll do the same for you.
Okay, deal.
We like I said, we have a guy on our team that's just as excited. So we have 06 available on Tembo Cloud, today, the day after it released.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't know if that matters much, but he's wanted to play with it. So, but it's pretty cool. We're pretty excited about all this stuff as well. We're not contributing code to PGVector, which I'd love to get us to that point, but again, that's pretty hard. You got to be a pretty good engineer to be able to contribute to a project like that. It's not a toy, right? It's pretty serious math going on inside that thing. So
but it is really exciting too. I don't think it is that hard. Let's say contributing to Postgres for me, it is I feel like it is a higher bar to pass than contributing to PGVector, in my opinion. I have this I studied maths, so for me, vectors, it is again cool. Mathematics, we can do something more. So for me, it's a more attainable goal, probably, that I can see myself contribute to PGVector easier than contributing directly to Postgres.
Yeah, I thought it was great too. Jonathan Katz was on Postgres FM recently talking about his involvement with, and it's just great because you look at him and he's been around for a long time. He's very, very humble in his own knowledge, and I think most of the people working on this stuff are probably near genius level IQ anyway. We're kind of anyone who's working near the PGVector, I'm sure their average IQ is real high, but even then, he's kind of like, I can run tests and so on. I mean, just running benchmarks and reporting what's going on is a huge value. Someone's got to do it. I think docs and use cases or demos are also things that anyone can contribute to, and that community would love to have access to. So
definitely.
So kind of shifting gears a little bit, tell me, do you have any big lessons that you've learned over your career that you would want to share with, your younger self or another person? I also noticed that you're involved in some, women in tech, type organizations as well, but maybe it could be unique challenges as a woman, could be in general, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, I remember few disaster scenarios, but I don't know exactly how we solved it, because I delete these memories immediately things are solved and write them down and push it to archive. But in general, what I learned, maybe just being around with Postgres development, with Postgres people, it's a good question. For me, the change in the community itself is big. I think when I look back at the few first conferences I joined, I was maybe one or two speakers that were women. So it was a bit sad, because there's a lineup of 50, 60 speakers, and there's one Gülçin. It feels you are alienated a little bit. But I never felt that way, honestly. I felt welcomed, and I felt people are really helpful and friendly. But then eventually, over all the years, I feel there are more people involved. Of course, there are women contributors. So I just mean here contributing as a code. There's Melanie. I recently met with her in the PGConf in Prague, and there is her name I forgot, but another very, very cool, very, very cool woman, which I forgot her name. I'm sorry. I want to stop saying wrong name. But so it is improving, and I see more women involved in just, there's Letitia, I think also part of contributor list now. So there are Postgres Women is founded after at some point. I am really invested I run a group in Turkey. It's called Women Developers of Turkey. I can see that things are changing, not necessarily as fast as we expect, because I was reading recently a study. If you are expecting the gender disparities to be closed naturally, it will take 300 years to get the gender pay gap. Yeah, to close the pay gap, to close the, hidden workload on women and stuff. So we really need to do better in that. Like, we have to have women in every part of the policy making. Because if you are not, let's say, if you don't see any women speaker, people don't go there, and it becomes an event for, dominated by males, for males.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really naturally initiate change. So we have to do better. There are like things that I appreciate in Postgres community. We have something called, COC committee. And this code of conduct keeps us actually binding for things that we do. And we should do this better. We could do better in inclusivity. Recently, in the last 2 years, the Postgres community started having daycare in the PG Conf view, so I could come this year with my daughter, for example. I mean, they seem like a small things. It really doesn't cost much to have all this, but just the thought that matters, because then you feel you are welcomed, you are part of it.
Yeah.
That you are not, just like as somebody that who just happened to be there, but you're part of it. So I think me as a younger person would appreciate what is happening at the moment, and I hope we could do better.
Yeah, I agree. I think in the early days, it's just so tricky. If men are men, they behave like men when they're around men, and that's just like it's just like very formulaic. And you get a few women in the conference. It's like, whoa, it's like you have to. Change is coming, but you don't know how to do that necessarily at that point. And I think that, I think we're getting to the point where there's enough critical mass where it's not weird in any way. But you're right. Like, it's incredibly challenging. Like, if we put a job posting out, it's just going to be dominated by male applicants. And that's just right. I don't know how many you're saying how many generations that sounds like about 10 generations of humanity before we'll get.
Yeah. We get to the equality, yeah.
Yeah, well,
it is sad.
let's all do our part to accelerate it, but nature takes time sometimes, I suppose. So
if you let it be, definitely.
Yeah. What are there? This is a question that no one will answer whenever I ask it, but because it sounds who are some of your favorite people in Postgres? And they're like, oh, I can't pick anybody, but
yeah, definitely not. So, it is hard, really. It's hard to answer. I have a personal favorite. My personal favorite contributor is Petri Jelínek. So it's like really, really cheesy and cheeky. Yeah, he's my husband now, but we met at FOSDEM. Like next year, it will be 10 years. We met literally in the Postgres booth.
So that's good.
It's like total Postgres story. Of course, apart from him, I like so many people. I really can't say name. It's just like it would be so hard to pick one.
Well, it's good that you named him. He would have been like, "Oh, what's up?" The answer was simple. So yeah. If you had a magic wand, you could add any feature to Postgres, and it's there, and let's say it'll hit ship in 17, like what would you use that magic wand on? Is there anything you can think of that?
Like crazy question. Okay, so if I had a magic wand, I would keep things as it is first, because I don't want Postgres to be end up wonky, not sturdy. I like how Postgres is in a way that I can. It's really trustable, right? Dependable. Things will be maintained. They will not be forgotten. They will not be just like left alone, dying in some corner. So that's one thing I would definitely make sure the wand is aware. But what I would add, probably having the vector support already, like having vectors in core already, having all these like index methods already. And so it will be amazing, of course, but I know it won't be just like that as quick. It will take time.
That's an interesting take, that you wouldn't use the wand because you just bombed a bunch of code and no one knows how it works, right?
Right.
It's an interesting thing around, like, again, if let's say we build an AI at some point, that's my thought too. Like, you hear people talk about, the AI is going to be able to write applications. I'm like,
right.
Can it maintain applications too? Because if it can't maintain it, that's a really bad developer. Someone who just like drops a big load of code on you, has bugs in it, and just walks away. Like that's what an AI would do. It's not good. So
Indeed.
I think AI assisted is the way it'll be for a long, long time, maybe forever.
Maybe.
I just can't imagine it building whole applications, whole products. Yeah, it's not gonna happen. It's too much,
I
but we'll
heard
see.
recently, like, there were people saying, like, they're asking to count ChatGPT from, I don't know, from 1 to 1,000, 10 by 10 or something. It just stops at like 20 or something. Yeah, I did enough. Now you just need to
Yeah,
continue by
I mean,
yourself or something. It doesn't want to do
you
the
get the
manual
pattern.
task. Yeah,
That's pretty funny. Like you're a human, you can figure the rest. Yeah.
exactly. Come
Yeah.
on. You should have already learned it.
Ugh, yeah, that's a good one. I haven't seen that. All right. Do you have any contrarian opinions in Postgres? Like anything that you kind of believe that the rest of the community doesn't believe, or are you pretty much going with the flow?
Hmm. I don't know. There is some like when it comes to community, I have different feelings. Like people believe maybe it naturally. It doesn't. I don't feel we bring a lot of new people to the Postgres community, so it's kind of maybe seen as like hard to get into,
Yeah.
and that's I mean not everybody agrees with it. I think people, when you are in it, you don't see it, right? It's the survivor bias, I
Right.
think, that you don't notice it because you are in it, you made it, so it must be easy to enter. But I mean, it has been a long time, so you don't notice how you were feeling when you're just starting as a, maybe for bringing new developers, bringing new people to just contribute in all sorts of ways. So here I think we could do better. There must be stuff that we need to improve. It might be in the, maybe, I don't know, any process that we have. It could be just like commit based process, or I don't know, bringing new people
Yeah.
to the boards, because I was working also in the PGConf board before. I could see that there are a lot of things to do, and I know we just do it voluntarily, like nobody pays the board members, so you just give a time, so you can't expect people to do everything. So there's a factor to it. Volunteering means you do after you do your main job, right? So then
Yeah.
we need more people. But then how many more people? Then you can just manage it. So there must be a balance, but I think we could do better, bringing, onboarding people better, probably, to help them to with the newer code, organize maybe better kind of onboarding new people is hard, and I don't think we really think about it as much as we should.
Yeah. So like there's the thing, like I call let's call it the Postgres way, which is like let's use a mailing list, let's do commit
Yeah,
fests. There's like certain
exactly.
things that's unique about the community that like normally, like, especially young developers, have never seen before. One of my
Exactly.
thoughts
Yeah.
would one of my thoughts would be like, what if we run some extension projects like the main project runs, and it's basically a minor league project compared to the major league project, but like I think it'd be kind of fun to have some minor projects. Let's say PGVector. I'm just throwing that out there, but
Mhm.
whatever the project is, and just use the Postgres way. And
Yeah.
it'd be a good way for someone to jump in without having to try to deal with the fact that they're committing to the main core project. If it's just a new
Yeah.
extension, but there's a methodology, at least that's a little bit of a familiarization for the system. What do you think of that? Like running an extension using the Postgres system. It's like, oh, that means dropping GitHub and like going to a mailing list, which seems like
Yeah.
a really
Yeah.
tough thing to get
It
it.
is. Yeah. I think it's one of the factors why. And people are like, now when you think about it, our attention span is getting less and less. And younger people didn't have to do with literally written letters, right? They didn't see much of it, and let
Yep.
alone email. They're used to instant messaging, instant notification, and
Yep.
so it is hard to onboard those type of people in a project that's exactly as you say, using mail list. And it is methodical, but you are right, like having maybe multiple teams that are, having experienced Postgres developers plus new developers who are under this team doing specific maybe features, even just like one feature organized by
Yeah.
this group of people, like maybe like different functionality. It could be like replication functionality, scalability functionality, some functionality teams that is kind of working around the features around it might help. I think maybe now this discussion reminded me, we had a keynote from Simon in PGConf about the next 20 years of Postgres. And there were a few ideas that I think are addressing this. So if people are listening, these talks are also on YouTube in PGConf channel, Postgres EU channel. So I think it's a lot of insights there to look forward to.
Awesome. All right. So do you listen to I know you make podcasts. Do you listen to what are some of your favorite podcasts? I'm always looking for good hints or tips for content.
I listened this one, of course. I was really a fan. I listened to all the episodes, so I was like, yeah.
Thank you.
And
awesome.
I listened to my own podcast because I listened a lot until we produce it. And there's Postgres FM. Sometimes it comes to my feed. I listen. And there is one more that I think Nikolai doing. I forgot the name again.
Yeah. But do you listen? How about outside of Postgres? Do you listen to any non-Postgres podcasts that you have?
Right. I do. There are like stuff that I am trying to learn Czech. So I'm trying to learn.
Yeah.
There's a podcast called Slow Czech. So I'm learning to hear things slowly.
That's cool.
Yeah, what I'm also interested in, obviously, feminism topics. So we have this Turkish feminism podcast that I'm listening to often. And I'm interested in psychology, so some psychology podcasts. Yeah. But mostly Postgres. I listen all the Postgres ones.
Yeah, me too. It's a lot. Cool. So we'll link to your Twitter. I'm going to find it and link it in the show notes. And it's been great chatting with you. Excited to make you as a friend, and hopefully I'll see you at some point. Whether do you ever come to the U.S. or are you to come to the U.S. events ever, or not really?
I didn't so far, but I plan to next year. I really felt sad not to come to Canada for the PGCon, and next year I want to fix it, and I also want to visit US while I am around that part of the world. But thank you for having me. It was really, really nice discussion. I hope we can meet face to face. Maybe you can be guest for my own podcast.
Well, if it makes sense, we'll do it. I'm out. I like to talk. So, all right.
Good.
All right, well, thanks. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.